Happy New Year! It's Amy Gable Stitcher here with a Floss Tube special edition video. Today is December 31st, 2020, and I can say with 100% certainty that this will be my last video of 2020. Today I am going to show you my 2020 cross stitch finishes, which when I was gathering them up and putting them on a list, it's a lot. So I am really excited about all the projects that I finished and worked on this year. I'm also going to show you the projects that I plan on starting in January of 2021, which I'm also really excited about. So, and that's tomorrow. So that's even better because I get to start a couple of these tomorrow. So let's get started. As I said, my name is Amy. I'm Gable Stitcher here on FlossTube and on Instagram. I know that this time of year, there are so many good videos for whip parades, finish parades, planning videos. And for me, this is prime time FlossTube viewing season, like the Super Bowl of FlossTube. So I tend to save all the videos that I see that come up with those things in the title, and I watch them all the way through January. And I really, really look forward to these types of videos every year. So if this is your first time watching me because you're like me and you love the Super Bowl of FlossTube, thank you so much for coming on by. And you know, if this is if you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back to see me. I am going to do a whip parade. I was hoping to do it this week, but with the kids off from school, we've been playing a lot of games and watching a lot of movies. So I'm going to wait until they go back to school, which is next week, beginning of January. And I'm excited about it, but whip parades do take a lot of time to film. So I figured it would be better to do once the kids are back at school. But today we're here for finishes. So let's talk about those. I had 20 finishes in the year 2020. Which is crazy. I have never had that many finishes before. I am not the best note taker when it comes to cross stitch. Some people are so organized when it comes to cross stitch. Like they take notes, they have all the data, the number of stitches, how many days they stitched on something. I have loose metrics. I never kept track prior to this year how many projects I finished. I'm pretty sure 12 was my record. So 8 past that is pretty amazing. To be fair, this was not a typical year. I did have more stitching time than normal with the pandemic, but more stitching time was a great bright side to a not great situation. So what I did this year, I started this last year, like in December. I started loading up my whips onto a spreadsheet. And I use Google Sheets because I could use it in my phone. I can update it like on the go. I can print it out from a computer. It was really easy for me to use. And I need to ask my kids how to do all the formatting because that's the way I am with technology sometimes. So what I did was I listed all of my whips on here, the rough date I started them, the designer, what types of threads I was using. I also went through and took pictures of all my whips at the end of the year and estimated how much % complete they were. And then I set a goal for the end of the year 2020 for how complete I wanted them to be. And if I finished something in 2020, I wrote the date that I finished it. And it took, you know, no more than 15-20 minutes to set up because I was just putting my whips in. And then it was very easy to update on my phone after I finished a project or did more work on a project. So for me, this was a really good way to keep track, keep loose guidelines of what I did. So that's it right there. So what I did for 2021 is I just moved the data over to a new spreadsheet and updated it by taking out my finishes. Really easy. And then I was thinking about my finishes for today. So I made another one really quickly, and this one I'll continue updating. And this was what I finished and what date and what I did with the item after I finished it. Did I fully finish it? Did I keep it? Did I give it away? So that's the extent of my note taking with cross stitch. More than normal for me. Like this is a lot of notes for me, not as much as a lot of other people. So, but looking at this, I can tell you that in 2020, as I said, I finished 20 things and I started 24. So a lot of finishes, but a lot of starts. I am +4 in the WIP column from the end of 2019. And 2020 was supposed to be my year of whipping down. Didn't happen. We'll see what happens in 2021. I also learned that I set goals that were too lofty for myself, and that's something that I'll think about for this coming year. So let's talk finishes. I finished a lot. So let's go through. The first finish I don't have, but I will insert a picture here. This is the Red Queen, and this was by Sub Rosa Designs. I started this in December of 2019. I finished it January 20th of 2020. I stitched this on a 36 count Picture This Plus fabric, and I used some DMC in a toile. A toile is the DMC that has some metallic in it, and it's really sparkly and really nice. I did not keep this. It is FFO'd. FFO means fully finished object. So it was completely finished, and it was sent out as a gift in a swap exchange that I did with a Facebook group. So that is my first finish of the year. I really liked that design. The Black Queen is a free design from Sub Rosa, which is available on her blog if you do a search for it. I'm not 100% sure. I'll put links below because I have so many projects that it would take me too long to put links. But if you do a search for the Black Queen by Sub, S-U-B, second word, Rosa, R-O-S-A, Designs, the design should come up. It was a free design. My next finish is an oldie but goodie. I finished Home of Needleworker by Little House Needleworks. And this is the finish right here. So I fully finished it. I put it into a frame. This was one of those like collage frames. There was 3, I want to say it wasn't 5x7s, 4x6s openings. But if you measured it, it fit this perfectly. I think those are on 28 count fabric. I started this in 2004. It sat languishing for over a decade, and I was unsure if I was going to finish it. I changed the color of the house. The house was charted to be a brown, and I really did not like it. So I pulled out what I had done in the house, and I picked a gray Victorian Motto floss that was slightly variegated, and I really like how it came out, and I was happy to finish this. So that was my second finish in January of 2020. So really happy with that. Oh, and the other thing I did is this bird, I attached a needle with a piece of thread. He's a little thief. So really, really liked it. I have been cross stitching for most of my life, since I was a teen, and I am nowhere near a teen now. So I have a pile of whips that could almost vote at this point because they are so old. What I have been trying to do is to knock out a few of those a year. I knocked out 3 of those this year, so you'll see this as I go through. And next year, I would like to knock out a few of those as well. I'll end up talking more about my plans as I'm going through my whips and my whip parade, but that's kind of my method to my madness of knocking out my older whips. I pick 1 or 2 a year to focus on, or 2 or 3 ideally to focus on. and hopefully, you know, kind of knock out one or two here and there. Number 3, my third WIP, I also gifted. It was the Rebecca Nurse House by Primitive Hair Designs, and I'll put a picture of that in here. I started that on January 13th of 2020. I finished it on February 15th of 2020. I stitched it on a 40 count Country Mocha, which is a printed Zweigart fabric, and I used the called for DMC. I put it into a frame. I believe it fit perfectly in a 5x7 frame when stitched on 40 count. And I gifted it to my very good friend Neve, who actually has a connection to the Rebecca Nurse House. So I knew that she would love it, and I loved it, and I am looking forward to stitching it for myself as well. So that was finish number 3. One of the things I try to do when I'm starting a new project is I do try to calculate the fabric and the stitch count so it will fit in a standard size frame. So it makes it easier as well as less expensive to finish. My 4th project was also by the Primitive Hair. I also do not have a picture for it, but I'll put that in here. It is called Sister Stitcher. This is a free design by the Primitive Hair, and it is available on her, I believe it's her blog or her website. So if you search Primitive Hair, free design, Sister Stitcher, it will come up. I started this on the 20th of January, 2020. I finished it on the 19th of February. I used nothing that was called for. I just used colors for my stash that I thought would be perfect. I did fully finish it. I put it into a frame. Once again, I stitched it on a fabric count where it would fit into a standard size frame. And I gifted it to my good friend Julie, who was Kansas City girl in a Colorado world here on Floss Tube. And when I picked the colors, I picked some of her favorite colors, and I made the stitchers look like herself and me. So that was the method to my madness with my my floss colors. All right, now we're going into a long stretch of items that I kept. I don't actually, when I do finish stitching, I don't tend to give away a ton of my stitching because I feel like stitching takes so much time that I want to make sure that the person really will appreciate it when they get it. That sounded bad. I don't want to, like, I want to make sure that they understand what a true gift it is. And I have so many projects that I have planned for places in my house. But I do like to stitch, you know, by the other side, I do really love stitching projects for people who I really care about because it is a way to give of yourself to them. So this year I actually gave away quite a few stitch projects, and I was so happy to give them. And there were projects I truly loved that I would have loved to have kept. And to me, those are the best kinds of gifts. When you know that it's something you love so much, it's the perfect gift to give to somebody else. All right, back to finishes. Next finish was another old finish. This was a project I think I started in 2010. I can't even remember. Some of the projects I started before 2017, I don't have a true date on when I started them because, as I said, I did not take notes. Try to put something behind this. So this is Join Your Hands. This is a wedding sampler by Lila Studio. And I was planning on stitching it for a 10th anniversary gift for my husband and I because we didn't have a wedding sampler. This week we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. So that tells you how my stitching plans often go. So this was stitched on 32 count Belfast linen. It was stitched with the call for overdyes. There's actually 2 colors in there. There's a Gentle Arts and a Weeks. They're so similar. Like if I had to do this again, I would have used one overdyed red. And believe it or not, that is 1/2. So sometimes you can get good coverage with 1/2. So this was a fun stitch. One of the reasons it languished so long is all the words were over 1, and I need to do quite a bit of charting. But there it is. I'm happy with the way it came out. I have been looking for a frame for this, and this is one of those instances where I should have paid attention to the size it would be after it was stitched, because it does not fit into a standard size frame. So I think I will likely end up ordering a custom frame for that this year. Next finish, I stitched a snowflake pillow is what I'm calling it. It was by the Snowflower Diaries, and this was a design that was in an old issue of Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine. I don't remember the year. I have a paper subscription, so I get the magazine every month. If you get the magazine, the physical copy of the magazine, you have access to all the back issues online. So it was one of the back issues. That is one of my favorite magazines. They have great designs in it, and I don't punch needle, but just the cross stitch, I really enjoy it. So I stitched this and I made it into a biscornu. It was supposed to be a pillow, square pillow, but I fully finished it into a biscornu. My friend Becky taught me how to do it. Thanks, Becky. And what I did on her advice was make a reverse chain stitch around each square and then attach them to make a biscornu. And then I have a button on each side. This is on a 28 count Zweigart linen that I had. It was a scrap. I have no idea what color it was. It's pretty big for a biscornu. I stitched it with a green Victorian motto floss and 3808, no, not 3808, 3808's teal, Amy. 3865 winter white is the white color I used. So I love it. Like, this I was stitching for a small for the exchange for the Frugal Yankee retreat, which was supposed to happen at the end of March. We all know what happened at the end of March 2020. So I decided to keep it. So it's on my stitching table. I love looking at it. I did not stuff it quite enough. Like, next time I make a biscornu, I will stuff it more, but this will not be the last biscornu I make. So really happy with how that came out, and it was really fun. Next item was from the Blackbird Book, the Sewing Club. I did not bring it over to show you, but it was one of their market releases. Great book, by the way, if you like Blackbird designs. It is really a must-have. I started this design on the 8th of April, and I stitched Pear Tree, and I finished it on the 16th of April. So this was a really quick stitch. This was a lot of fun to stitch. This is supposed to go on top of a box. It is obviously not fully finished. So I need to find a box the size that I could put it on. There is a box you can buy off of Etsy. I don't believe I used the right fabric count for that box, so I'm sure I can find something. I used Victorian Motto flosses. I just picked a palette that I liked. It's a little bit brighter than the called for over dyes. I'm really happy with how this came out. This is one of a 3-piece set in that book, The Sewing Club. There's a bag that goes with it, and I forget what the third piece is, but I would like to stitch the other two, and I have plenty of fabric. This was something for my stash I just pulled, and I pulled it because I knew I would have enough to stitch all 3 of that. So once again, there we are. It was April. It was a lot of fun to stitch. All right, moving on down the line, I have another Blackbird finish. I have it was finished April 16th. I printed out my list, too small. Should have used bigger font for this one. I started Sunflower House by Blackbird Designs. I started this on the 21st of March. Right there. Looks pretty good. Put it on top of something. This is stitched with all the called for. This chart, this is one of those I hate to show because you cannot find this chart. This is an old Loose Feathers from about 2004. It's called Sunflower House. I stitched it on the called for fabric, which you can't get anymore. It's a R&R reproductions that I don't believe they're dying, with all the called for threads, except the green and the leaves and the vine that you see going around. I subbed out a Victorian monofloss because the call for green was Grecian gold and it was yellow. Like it wasn't green at all. So I subbed in a green. This was a lot of fun to stitch. I made this a memorial piece. One of my great aunts passed away, actually from COVID, while I was stitching this. So I put her initials in red as a way to remember her. Like I said, this is, unfortunately, you cannot find this chart. If you do find it for a reasonable price, snatch it up. Blackbird has been reprinting quite a few of their charts recently. Maybe this one will be on the list. I don't know if you can email them and say, this is what I would love to see reprinted, but this is one that a lot of people would like to stitch. It's a fun stitch, and it would be great if more people could stitch it. So, Sunflower House by Blackbird Designs. I have a plan on how to finish this. I kind of need to get, I think, to a thrift store to find what I need, and I haven't really gone to any thrift stores this year. So hopefully in 2021, that will be fully finished. All right, the next one I finished is a big one. It is Spooky Countdown by The Primitive Hare. I started this at some point in 2018. I believe I started it in October of 2018. I finished it in May. I finished it May 8th, 2020. Sunflower House, I finished at the end of April 2020. I'm not sure I said that or not. And this is Spooky Countdown by The Primitive Hare. This is a really fun chart to stitch. I stitched this on MCG Textiles linen that I coffee and tea dyed myself. I believe it was a 32 count, 32-ish count, because it was very uneven. I will not stitch on that linen again. I stitched it with the called for DMC. I did make a couple of modifications. I put in some purple where I wanted to because I love purple and Halloween needs purple. So some purple went in there. And the other modification I did, which if you've watched me for any length of time, you would know, you've heard this before. So just humor me while I say it again. I switched blocks 8 and 7. Block 7 was supposed to be the cauldron. I switched it with block 8. My YouTube and Instagram name, Gable Stitcher, is because I was a tour guide at the House of Seven Gables in Salem, Massachusetts through college. And this is my homage to that. I wrote H7G for House of Seven Gables on one of the spell books. So, because this piece speaks Salem to me. Really happy with how that came out. Love displaying it in October. And this is a standard frame from Michaels. It's one of those that goes like this with 3 5x7s. So pulled out the insert, popped in my piece. It's no glass, and I put some batting underneath it. I'm running out of places to put things. So that was that finish. My next finish is a Lizzie Kate. It's Eeek Boo Hiss by Lizzie Kate. I started that on the 13th of April this year. On the 13th of every month this year, myself and Julie, Kansas City Girl and a Colorado World, started a new Halloween project. I honestly missed a few months, even though it was my idea to do it, because I got overwhelmed. So most months I started something on the 13th. I started this in April and I finished it May 30th. And this is on a 28 count Monaco that I coffee and tea dyed myself. Sorry about that. Forgot to shut off my phone. So I used the DMC equivalent of the Fancy Floss for this. And I really like the way it came out. This is one of those that, do I count it as a finish? Do I count it as a whip? Do I count it as both? I think I'm gonna end up counting it as both because the piece is Eeek Boo Hiss. There's 3 pieces that go together. And my plan is to stitch all 3 on this fabric. So yes, Boo is a finish. However, Eeek and Hiss are not. So this will be coming back out in 2021. Next piece is a Just Nan piece. It's Seeds of Friendship. This is a class I took in 2004. Not 2014, 2004. And I know it was 2004 because I found the receipt for this project in the project bag. So it's finally finished. I finished this in June 9th of 2020. So let me hold that up. This was a fun stitch in some ways. It uses silks. The silks are gorgeous. It's so much fun to stitch with silks. This is a small piece, but this was a lot of work. A lot of specialty stitches in this, a lot of over one, like all the words are over one. The flowers on the bottom are over one. There's beads. You probably can't see it in the picture, but it's very sparkly. Really, really happy to finish this. I can't say I really enjoyed stitching on it. I mean, I did, but I didn't. For me, I need to be in a certain place to stitch on what I call fussy stitching, because for me, stitching is relaxation, and I don't always get relaxed when I am doing fussy stitching. But I did enjoy it. I did not enjoy every minute I stitched on it, but I did enjoy it because I did finish it. And I'm really looking forward to fully finishing this. I think I'm going to put it in a shadow box because of the charm. So that's something else I would like to fully finish in 2021. So this was my second pre-2017 finish of the year. So that was really nice to do. So 2017 is when I came back to stitching after taking some time off when I had children. So I have the pre-2017 and the post-2017 whips. All right, the next project I finished is fully finished. This is called Salty 24/7. I can do all things through spite, which strengthens me. So just a fun little piece. This is a free design from Hemlock and Rye Stitchery. I stitched it 1/1 on 28 count Monaco using a Victorian mono red floss called Prim Red. The reason why I did it with red is I kind of wanted it like a pun, two times pun. I mean, it's like I said, it's kind of punny, right? Because you're punning off a Bible verse, but also because I wanted it to play off of a classic red sampler. So that's why I did it in Bristol sampler colors. So that's that. And once again, I did it so it would fit into a standard size frame. And it's fully finished. Next one, June, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 finishes in June. It's crazy. Let me see, June, 3 Tulips by Brenda Gervais. This was a fun stitch. This was a chart that was lent to me by my stitchy friend Shelly, who is Eeek Stitch on Floss Tube. And this is Three Tulips by Brenda Gervais. I love bunnies. Well, two of my kids love bunnies. So as a result, we love bunnies in this house. This is none of the called for. The only call for color is the bunny itself. The rest of them, I used Victorian Motto floss for my stash that I picked out. The model for this is really dark. Like, it's very prim and very dark. I did it on a 40 count seraphim fabric called Randy's Blue. And I wanted it to be really bright, like a bright, fun piece. So I really lightened up the colors. And I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. This was a really fun stitch. Obviously not fully finished. My next finish was C is for Crow by Rovaris Designs. And this is another one that is in the cross stitch Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine. So if you have a print subscription and access to the back issues, you can get this. I started this on May 13th, 2020 for a Stitch Halloween 13 start. I finished it June 28th of 2020. I stitched it with the called for DMCs. There's two colors there, 310, and I don't remember what color the red is. Maybe 815, 816, I'm not sure. I stitched it on 40 count Country Mocha, that printed fabric, and it will fit into a 5x7 frame. I just haven't picked one up yet. That is the right color. I need a black frame. So happy with that. It's a fun stitch. My next finish, I do not have a picture of. I will put it in here. This was a Prairie School ornament. It was from the book 48, number 48. I forget what the number of the book is. And I've actually passed it on to a friend for a little bit. So I stitched it on a 28 count linen using the called for DMC. And it was fully finished. And it was gifted to Marlene, who was stitching by the lake for her birthday. Abby Bella Stitch had set up a ornament train for Marlene for her birthday. So that was a lot of fun to stitch something and give it to somebody who I knew would bring a ton of joy. So I just called it 1994 Santa on my page because that was the year the book was from. So it was from book 48. My next finish is Pumpkin Ladies by The Little Stitcher. The Little Stitcher is a designer where you can find her charts on Etsy. I started this at some point in 2019. I'm not exactly sure when. I finished it on December 16th of this year. I stitched it on a 46 count linen, Bergen linen. And I picked 46 count because I thought it would fit into a standard size frame, and it turned out it didn't quite fit. So I popped it in this box. Instead, I put it on a piece of foam core. This plaid you see underneath is a piece of a shirt of my husband's. He had holes in the elbows, and I saved the shirt because I like the fabric. So I took part of the back and I used it for a backing. Oh, you can see it right there. So I am really happy with how this came out. This was a really fun stitch. I used the called for DMCs, and I also substituted in some Victorian Motto overdyes for the orange, for the pumpkin, and like some of the other colors that you see. But the dresses were the called for DMC. I say this every time I show this project, I love stitching this. I love the little stitcher on Etsy. I love her aesthetic. I call her designs like creepy cute, a lot of them. So that was my first little stitcher cross stitch. It will not be my last. My next project, my next finish was Frankenstein. And this was by this was a Stitching Book Club project. The Stitching Book Club has kind of roared off to a life of its own this year. Sapphire Mountain Handcrafts is the shop behind it, and she has already picked her books for next year. So there's a Facebook group for it, Stitching Book Club. And next year, I think so what she does is she picks a book, there's a read along, and then a mystery stitch along that goes with it. It's about $10, $15. This Frankenstein was $10. I don't know what the other ones were for the stitch along. And you get the parts emailed to you as they come out, and they go along with the reading. So she just finished A Christmas Carol, which I did not do. Had so much fun doing Frankenstein. I'm pretty sure 2 of the books she's doing next year are Sense and Sensibility and Little Woman, The Great Gatsby, and there's one more. I forget what the other one is. But great fun. And her previous designs are available for purchase on Sapphire Mountain Handcrafts on Etsy. So, long-winded way to say, this is Frankenstein. Not fully finished, not ironed, but this was a lot of fun. So I stitched this on a piece of mystery linen. It was a scrap. It is a 40 count. And I used a Victorian mono floss. It was one color. It's like an old bronze or something is the name of it. And I really like the way it came out. It's like a nice little patina to it. Like I wanted it to look aged. And I really think it does. So, really happy with that. It's a little blown out. That's better. So, and when I say scrap, like, I mean, it's a scrap. So, and I still plan on doing something with the bottom. Like, I get every little bit out of linen that I possibly can. Not fully finished, obviously. My next finish is the 2019 Linen and Thread Stitch Along. This was gifted to my good friend Celeste, who is one of the ones who motivated me to finish it. And she loved the peacock that she and I affectionately called Percy. So I'll put a picture of that in here. I stitched this 28 count over 1. It was on Monaco fabric, and the main blue color was 3808. I loved the color. I loved stitching this, and I loved gifting it to Celeste. So it's one that I love, that peacock. Like, I might need to stitch it again for myself. Like I said, the best gifts are the ones that you love so much. And I really did love that. And I'm really happy that Percy is in a new home, and hopefully I can go visit Percy and Celeste next year. That was started January 2019, and I finished it November 15th, 2020. All right, the next item I also don't have, I'll insert a picture here, and that is called the wrapper. It was a Christmas ornament. It was from, I think, the 2011 or 2012 Just Cross Stitch Christmas Ornament book. It is from Full Circle Designs. I stitched it on 20 count Aida, and it was an ornament swap exchange for my local cross stitch group. I was really loved the way it came out. The chenille I put around the edge of it, which you would have seen in the picture, is actually yarn. I had some chenille yarn lying around. Didn't have any, I like the Lady Dots Creates chenille trim. I didn't have any. I just used some yarn, and it actually came out really nice. So keep that in mind when you're doing finishing. All right, the next one. Oh, the wrapper was started on December 1st of 2020, and I finished it on December 8th of 2020. So my local stitching group decided in January of 2020 that we were going to do an ornament exchange for Christmas. Nothing like waiting until the last minute, Amy. I knew in January, I started it December 1st, and it needed to be at the spot where the exchange was happening by December 10th. Two of the stitches were great in our group, and they picked up the ornaments and distributed them. Nothing like cutting it close, Amy, but that's kind of the way I work. All right, well, I shouldn't say the last one. The next one is called, this is a big finish, and I haven't shown this anywhere. I didn't even put it on Instagram. This is called The Dark Side. This is from an Etsy designer called Natalie's Needlework, which is no longer on Etsy, I believe. Couldn't find the design when I looked for it, but there's other designs that are similar on there. I stitched this for my daughter, Natalie, who loves Darth Vader, and she requested this. And here it is, not ironed. Since you don't know the power of the dark side. So let me hold that back. I am really happy with how that came out. I have a frame for it. I had planned to have it framed for this video. One of the reasons this video kept getting pushed off, but it obviously is not in a frame yet. So hopefully this week. I need to cut the foam core for it. Really, really happy with how that came out. This was a labor of love to stitch because that is a lot of 310. So started last year in July 2019, finished it right before Christmas. She'd requested to have it in August for her birthday and I could not get it done. So I got it done for Christmas, even though it was not framed. So there we go. That looks really good. So 32 count white Belfast, about 6 skeins of 310. So I have a cone of 310, one of the big cones. So I just went to I call it the well of 310 and filled up my bobbin, but it used a lot, which is fine. I really like the way it came out and she's gonna look great in her room. She already has a wall prepared for it. So I need to really frame it so we can get it up on there. I'll have it, hopefully my next update video will be framed. I can show it then. 2 more, down to the nitty-gritty end here. I finished 2 ornaments at the end of December. So the first one I'm calling Santa Cone. How cute is that? Spin it around. This was an ornament. It was one of the free gifts with the World of Cross Stitching magazine. It was one of the Christmas issues from last year. So all the materials came with it. This is stitched on vinyl Aida. So this is all the kit materials, the vinyl Aida, the baker's twine, and the DMC. This was my travel project for the first part of 2020 because I had it in a little cosmetic bag, zip bag. I could put it in my purse and just work on it when I was waiting for kids for lessons or at school. After March, I didn't travel anywhere, so it just sat languishing. And Lynette, my friend Lynette from Homesteading on the Home Front, encouraged me to take it out and finish it this year so I could knock it off the whip list. So thank you, Lynette. It already was hanging on the tree. I pulled it off. Really happy to finish it. I will never stitch on vinyl Aida again. Very unlikely. It looks great. It was easy to make into the cone. It was really hard to get the stitches in, but it really came out nice. All right, the last one, I think we're calling it Close Call Santa. This is from that Prairie School book, number 48. I don't think the Santa really has a name. This is stitched on the same fabric I stitched the one for Marlene on. It's a 28 count opalescent linen with the called for DMC. I finished this on the 28th. I actually finished this at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, I'm not going to bed until I finish this one because this one was almost done. I finished it at, like 12:30 in the morning. So technically it was the next day, but for me, it was the same day because I hadn't gone to bed yet. So there we go. Really happy with how it came out. Calling it Close Call Santa because I stitched the other ornament right here. Amy, you need to leave an inch between each ornament, which means 2 inches when you're putting 2 ornaments next to each other. Not like an inch, because then you end up with nothing on the other side. So there we go. So that was my last finish of 2020. 22 finishes, 26 starts, so I am +4. So assuming I don't start anything before midnight, I'm going into 2021 with, I think, 36 whips, which you will see in a whip parade next week. So most number of finishes I've ever had. I don't see myself having that many next year, because my goal in 2021 is to, this is switching over here to just a tiny to talk about goals, and then I'll show you the projects I'm starting in January. My goal in 2021 is to finish one big project from my old whips. My big green sampler, Perman 1830, that I started, I think it was 2005 or 2006. I would like to finish that this year. I say that every year, but 2021 is going to be the year. I'm at the halfway point of it. So that is going to be my focus for this year. I have like 3 projects, big projects that I want to either, that's the only one I want to finish. The other ones I want to get some progress in. I plan for 2021 to do my thread a day, where every month I pick a project where I put a thread a day in that project. And I'm going to make my green sampler most months. The other months when I need a break from the green sampler, I'll pop in one of those other 2 big ones. And I'll talk more about that in my whip parade, because this video is already getting long. Every year I say I want to whip down. Every year I say I want to lose weight. Neither one of them ever happens. So I'm being more realistic this year. I plan on not starting a ton, so it'll be easier to whip down. I'm going to start a few things in January, and then I am going to just work on whips, see how long I can go without starting anything. And I'm shooting for a 2-to-1 next year. 2 finishes for every 1 start. I feel like you get 2 free starts a year. New Year's start, birthday start. So I'm not counting those 2, but the rest of them, I'm going to go for a 2-to-1. I know in my head it's going to end up more like a 1.5-to-1. That's fine, as long as I have more finishes than starts. Or as long as I have a lot of work on big projects. So, you know, I mean, I'm very loosey-goosey with this. We'll see what happens. So I am planning on starting like 4 projects in January. The first project, it's a big one, and they send. This is an out of print chart. This is an old chart. It's from Exemplar Dames. And this is the picture that comes with the chart. You say it looks big. Why, yes, it is big. Here's the other picture that comes with the chart. It's big. I like big whips. I really do. So I have had this in my stash for at least 15 years. A group of frugal Yankees, cross-stitchers from New England, we cross-stitch together every other week. Lynette, virtually on Zoom. Lynette from Homestead in the Home Front was very excited because she found this chart on eBay for a really good price. I want to say it was over the summer. And I said, that's awesome. Like, she goes, I'm going to start it for New Year's. I'm like, I'll start it with you, because I've had that chart forever sitting in my stash and I've never started it. Some other frugal Yankees have it too. Kat and Kristen, they're starting it. And then a few other frugal Yankees are starting big projects. So we're calling it and Sal. I need to talk to Lynette. Maybe we can hashtag it like and a frugal Yankee or something like that. So I'm ready to go. This is that printed 40 count fabric, Country Mocha. Have it on my scroll rod. This takes like a linear, takes a long half yard to stitch. So there's a lot of fabric on there. So that's the fabric I'm using. And at one point in time, I actually had the overdyes for that. As I said, I have had this for, I can't remember if I bought it before or after my oldest one was born, but it's at least 15 years old. Those overdyes have long ago been plucked and used for something else. So what I did is I went through and looked at the DMC equivalent. I looked through my Victorian model floss. I had 2 of the over dyes that was called for. Dry Time, and I forget what the other one was. Deep Lucy. And the rest, I pulled Victorian Motto. And if I didn't have a good substitute, I'm using DMC. And it's gonna be beautiful. And I am really looking forward to starting this. I might not wait until midnight. So that is start number 1. That should be enough because that is a huge start. Nope. Modern Folk Embroidery released the picture of their 2021 stitch along. I'll put it here. It took my breath away. I love it. I have to stitch it. So it's not a mystery because they've released the whole picture. You get a part mailed to you every month. So I am going to stitch it. I'm stitching it with 2 colors of DMC because I'm going for the 2 color one versus the 1 color one, which is half the stitching. 3750 is going to be my dark blue. 932 is my light blue. I am stitching it on a 40 count alabaster linen, and that color is pretty true. It's like a really light silvery blue-gray. It's not quite white, but it's not quite gray. Let me hold up the floss on it so you can see. It really looks nice with those floss colors. I keep checking my email to see if the first part's dropped yet because they're in the UK. So I'm thinking, when is it midnight in the UK? Is it going to drop so I can start it? So I'm very excited about that. All right, my next start, I have stitched projects for 2 of my 3 children. I have not stitched a project for my youngest one. My youngest one is a stitcher. However, this project she picked is a lot of heavy stitching. It's not big, but there's some areas of dense stitching. And I'm not sure if she would be able to stitch it without getting frustrated. So I told her I would stitch it for her and she can stitch with me. She can stitch some spots on it. So I'll insert a picture here of what it's gonna look like. It's called I Need Some Space. And I'm just stitching it with the called for DMC on a piece of 16 count blue Aida, navy Aida. So she requested navy over black. And I'm using the Aida because 1 is dark fabric and 2, that way she can help. So I'm probably going to start that the beginning of January. I would like to start it like on her birthday day, which is the 12th. It's not in January, but kind of around her birthday. So we'll see. All right. Is that enough? No, I have one more planned start. So January 20th of 2021 is Inauguration Day. There will be a new president in the United States. I am going to start a new constellation by Plum Street Samplers. So this is like the Betsy Ross sampler. And I saw this when it was still like it hadn't been released yet. It was a class piece. And this was another one that took my breath away. I could not wait to stitch it. So as soon as it came out, I bought it. And I think this is perfect for Inauguration Day start. So I pulled what I had for the called for, which actually was quite a bit. I'll put in DMC for the rest. I think I bought 1 or 2 flosses for it. I think I may have brought this one, which is Classic Colorworks, Jakey Brown. And I think I brought Green Onion, which is a Classic Colorworks. As you can tell by how many things I subbed in Victorian Mono, I'm a big believer in using what I have for floss and stash. And I am going to stitch it on a 36 count Picture This Plus vellum. So it'll be pretty. I believe I already did the math to make sure it'll fit into a standard frame, but I'll do it again before I start. So that's my Inauguration Day start. And that is it for now. That was a lot. I was hoping to keep it to 30 minutes. I think I'm at an hour, but I had a lot of finishes. I have a lot of things I plan on starting. So as I said, I will be back next week for a WIT parade, and I'll talk more about my 2021 goals as I'm showing you projects. Thank you so much for continuing to watch and support me all of 2020. I really appreciate and enjoy interacting with every single one of you. 2020 was a great stitching year. It was a year where I got to meet a lot of stitchers virtually, and it was a year where I was really able to get comfort from my stitching, and I hope that you were as well. I hope everyone has a wonderful, happy new year, leaving 2020 behind and going into 2021. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.